Ave Maris Stella.
Hello and welcome back to Vatican II in a Year. This is your host, Father Matthew Schneider. I am a priest of the Church of Christ, and I'm a theology professor. This is a podcast on the Star Coast Production Network at sqpn.com. Today, we're on day 123 and recovering Christus Dominus 6-7 on the Union of the World's Bishops. If you want to follow along, we have a reading plan and more details at sqpn.com/Vatican and frmatthewlc.com/Vatican. Yesterday, we talked about how all bishops are part of the body and can exercise collegiality either each on their own or via synods. And then this was part of both yesterday and today are part of Chapter 1, the relationship of bishops to the Universal Church, and Section 1.1, the role of bishops in the Universal Church. We'll finish this section, but not this chapter today. And today we're going to talk about bishops' need to care for the whole church through their action, right? Their action needs to care for the whole church. Paragraph 6 has 3 parts, 3 subparagraphs. Paragraph 7 has none. So it's going to be, there's 4 paragraphs. You're looking at the paper, even though sometimes the number is actually 3 paragraphs. So we call them subparagraphs. But anyways, let's get on to paragraph 6. It's talking about how bishops are concerned for the rest of the world, right? The first one is concerned for the whole world. The second B is about evangelization, apostolate, and C is about showing that concern and how they give money to the rest of the church, right? Because most of us who are listening to this are in the richer part of the world, Canada, US, UK, Australia. We generally have more money than a lot of the other parts of the world. So how much do we give? Not just for our own diocese, but then how much does the diocese give for the church around the world? That's a good question. That's what we'll get to in C. So 6a, let's read it. As legitimate successors of the apostles and members of the Episcopal College, bishops should realize that they are bound together and should manifest a concern for all the churches. For by divine institution and the rule of the apostolic office, each one together with all the other bishops is responsible for the church. They should especially be concerned about those parts of the world where the word of God has not yet been proclaimed, or where the faithful, particularly because of the small number of priests, are in danger of departing from the precepts of the Christian life, or even of losing the faith itself. Right, so the bishops have this concern for the entire church, not just for their own diocese. Obviously, it's not the same concerns they have for their own flock because they don't have a kind of governmental authority over the rest of the church, right? So, and they shouldn't be as concerned about like what's going on in other countries, right? Here I'm in San Jose. The bishop here, he's concerned about San Jose. He is a little bit concerned about the metro area because San Jose, Oakland, San Francisco, all 3 of them are, one metro area. You can even say at least part of the Diocese of Santa Rosa or, Monterey is probably even in the same metro area, the Bay Area, right? So, but in that sense, right, we have these dioceses, and he's most concerned about here, right? He has some concern about the world, but he doesn't have any authority over those other ones, right? He has authority over all the Catholics here in the Diocese of San Jose, but not the rest of that, not those other dioceses, or not other dioceses on the other side of the world, right? And, there is a special concern here where Jesus is known the least, where we need that evangelization, where people don't know about Jesus. That's important, right? And it notes how there's a divine institution of each bishop over their local church, right? It's not a divine institution that like the Diocese of San Jose has each geography, but it is a divine institution that each local church is led by a bishop, right? That's what we talk about with divine institution, right? It is ecclesiastical law exactly where the Diocese of San Jose's borders are. And in the U.S., we generally follow state lines and county lines. Little dust and trivia here for you. In the U.S., there are only 2 dioceses that cross state lines. One of the ones that crosses Arizona, New Mexico, I think it's Santa Fe. I'm forgetting exactly. It's crossed Arizona, New Mexico. And then Wilmington, Delaware also has the eastern shore of Maryland, that whole Delmarva Peninsula. Those are the only 2 that cross state lines. Anyways, but getting back here, right? So let's move on to 6b. Bishops should work for evangelization and apostolate. Let's read it. Let bishops, therefore, make every effort to have the faithful actively support and promote works of evangelization and the apostolate. Let them strive, moreover, to see to it that suitable sacred ministers as well as auxiliaries, both religious and lay, be prepared for the missions in other areas of suffering from lack of clergy. They should also see to it, as much as possible, that some of their own priests go to the above-mentioned missions or dioceses to exercise the sacred ministry there either permanently or for a set period of time. Right? So here we have the bishop there. They need to be concerned for evangelization of apostolate, right? Promote the works of evangelization of apostolate, right? And it's not just that they do it, right? Bishops should evangelize, they should do apostolate, but a lot of their work is promoting and encouraging others to do it, right? Because even me as a priest, like there's so many things that can be done, and to a degree, I can only encourage people or only instruct people and help people understand their faith so that then hopefully they'll go out and do apostolate. This is getting very meta, where I'm like explaining, hey, I explained the faith for you. Hopefully you can go out and share with others, right? And while I'm doing that in this podcast, right? And, this last one is very interesting, allowing diocesan priests to become missionaries elsewhere. This is not so common. I've known of a few. The most well-known one here in the U.S. is probably Blessed Stanley Rother. He was a priest of the Diocese of Oklahoma City. He was around there for about 5 years in that diocese. Oklahoma City is Oklahoma, right? And then he moved to Guatemala and was a missionary for about 13 years, learning the local languages, both Spanish and the local indigenous language, which is a variation of Mayan that was not actually written before then, right? And he did all those things, right? Any diocesan priests who are listening who really feel that zeal to go and evangelize the mission territory, don't be afraid to ask your bishop, right? This is a great opportunity to go out there, right? Then I know in my community, there's certain places I can go and ask my provincial if I want to be sent. We have certain missions that my community takes care of, right? So we have certain areas where we do more mission work, right, as opposed to other things. But me myself, I'm assigned to teach in the seminary, so a little different, but still very much helping people to know, love, and serve Jesus. So anyways, let's move on to 6C. Bishops should help others monetarily, right? So this idea that the bishop should concern himself in money, both for his diocese and a little bit concerned for these other places that aren't as well off, right? Let's get into the text. Bishops should also be mindful in administering ecclesiastical property of the needs not only of their own diocese, but also of the other particular churches, for they are also a part of the one Church of Christ. Finally, they should direct their attention, according to their means, to the relief of disasters by which other dioceses and regions are affected. So here, this idea of administering ecclesiastical property, that might not be understood by everybody. That just means the ecclesiastical property, ecclesiastical means belonging to the church or referring to the church. So all the property the diocese has, right? The parishes, the schools, a lot of times dioceses might have some money in investments or things like that. They're not directly serving the church, but like, for example, they might have investments which are going to be the retirement fund for the priests or diocesan employees, right? That's totally legitimate to have, but the bishop needs to administer them, needs to manage them, right? And that's what he's talking about there, right? And the concern is primarily for this diocese, but not just for his diocese, and for the whole church. And there are special needs in cases of natural disaster, right? When we have those natural disasters, it gives a special need for the church to really step in and help out, right? I know, for example, in the Legion Regnum Christi, we have an organization that raises money for foreign missions and things like that called Catholic World Mission. And when there's a disaster, they often have a special fundraising to raise money to send to that area of the world, right? So that we as, individual people can help, whatever kind of disaster is going on and help the church where that disaster is happening. So paragraph 7 is about the special care when the church is slandered, particularly bishops. So here's the text. Let them especially embrace in brotherly affection those bishops who, for the sake of Christ, are plagued with slander and indigence, detained in prison, or held back from their ministry. They should take an active brotherly interest in them, so that their suffering may be assuaged and alleviated through the prayers and good works of their confreres. Right? So this slander kills the soul, this idea of being imprisoned, being held back from the ministry, right? So this is something that slander and these kind of things were, very much in the communist playbook at the time, right? Or totalitarian regimes, the Nazis as well, wanted to control religion, right? And so what they'll do is they'll slander priests, they'll put priests in prison, they'll do the same with bishops, right? And that was a big thing at the time of Vatican II, is still a pretty decent thing today, right? When you look at certain countries and how they're attacking Catholicism, right? And bishops should have concern for those countries, should have special concern for those and those bishops, those priests in those situations. And we should alleviate other sufferings, right? The bishops alleviate the other people, but also other bishops. So thank you for listening to this episode of Vatican II in a Year. This is a listener-supported podcast, and you could donate to help StarCrest produce it and other great podcasts at sqpn.com/give. You can give one-time monthly or join the StarCrest Patreon. Tomorrow we're going to continue with the next paragraphs of Christus Dominus 8 through 10 on bishops in relationship to the Holy See, the Vatican, whatever you want to call that, right? So please join us then to learn more about Vatican II, which will provide a blueprint for the Catholic Church. Go to sqpn.com/Vatican, frmatthewlc.com/Vatican, or Vatican SQPN on Facebook and X for more information on the podcast, such as playlists for individual documents and a reading plan.
Amen.